It's the second half of June, and that means the tourists are starting to come to Maine for the season. The 4th of July really kicks off the tourism crunch.
The communities that depend on tourism have been doing pretty well since the pandemic, and the state office that's in charge of promoting tourism is working on ideas to help take the industry into the future. 207's Don Kerrigan got together with the leaders of Maine's Office of Tourism to find out what's happening.
When it comes to vacations, we have a lot of what the world wants, and that's why they come each year by the millions.
I just was here for a day last summer on a cruise ship. We stopped here, and I just loved it, and I wanted to spend a summer here.
Yeah. These young women coming from all over the world to work at a summer camp.
I've always really loved being by the ocean, the laid-back vibe of it, and yeah, it's just really pretty here.
To camps and cottages, to beaches and lighthouses, rivers and mountains, even to stores and restaurants they come. An estimated 8.5 million visitors last year, according to the Maine Office of Tourism, and all of them spending money. What were we at? Was it $8 billion?
Actually, it's a little bit even more than that, $9 billion in direct spending from our visitors in 2023.
Carol Ann Willett is director of the Office of Tourism. She used to run the Office of Outdoor Recreation, but just took over the top job from longtime director Steve Lyons. He is now running the Maine Film Office.
Sort of given us.
We sat on the deck at Brown's Wharf in Boothbay Harbor, one of many places in Maine where tourism is the biggest business, and one of many places that have struggled the last few years to find enough workers.
And it's not even just Maine. When you think about it at the national scope and scale, I mean, we hear the stories from our colleagues of similar challenges through that. I think the industry has done a remarkable job thinking through all the various ways they can, work around those gaps.
And that may be one of the biggest changes Maine's tourist industry has faced in recent years, but not the only one.
Well, I think one of the biggest changes I've seen in 25 years working in the Office of Tourism is how you're targeting people and how you're marketing to people. It used to be you'd take an ad out in the paper or on television or on the radio, and people would see it and they'd hopefully come and visit.
There are times we need to pause.
They still use videos like this, but they are much more targeted, and some are only seen online.
The number one way people get their information for travel is from friends and relatives. So a lot of it comes from social media. A lot of it's just, hey, I heard you went here. I want to go to Maine too.
He says the state and the tourist industry work with companies that collect and analyze all sorts of data to know where tourists are choosing to go, where they're coming from, and what they like to do when they're here.
Right now, the vast majority of people coming here are white travelers. The country itself is changing, the population base is changing, so in order for us to be welcoming to all, we have to really diversify the audience and really look at other people.
Plan your trip at visitmaine.com.
They say the tourism office's destination management plan is also recognizing that visitors now look for more than just moose and lobster and lighthouses.
I think the cultural vibrancy that we continue to see grow across the state has certainly had a lot to do with that. The idea that there is actually quite a bit of arts and culture and cultural heritage things to do, really that mix, and then layer the food on top of that. And for younger audiences, that whole notion of certainly that foodie scene, you've got the microbreweries, the distilleries, you start adding and layering, as Steve says, all those various parts and pieces.
Willett and Lyons say it's also an effort to keep spreading tourism out to a wider swath of Maine as visitors look for less touristy experiences.
I think this travel with a purpose has become of bigger importance to a lot more people. They really want to go to that small community that you can go to the local shopkeeper and talk to the owner. You can go into a small restaurant.
He calls it off the beaten path tourism. Of course, the challenge, both say, is to help those places to not lose what makes them special.
We've seen an increase in length of stay and an increase in spend, so it's not always about more visitors, but the quality, I hate to say the quality of the visitor, but how the visitor spends time in Maine.
Maine's tourist towns and popular spots have been dealing with those same pressures for decades. The income is essential, but crowds can be, in places, a challenge.
Because if you ask somebody from New York City whether they think it's busy here this time of the year, they might say, well, it doesn't seem too bad, you know, but someone who lives here year round and who might be here off season, it's like, oh, it's crazy here.
So their work is finding the balance and helping everyone who lives and works here to make a living in a place millions of others want to share.
You know, we sometimes forget how competitive it is to try to attract tourists, because Maine is doing this, and we may be familiar with what Maine is doing, but we kind of don't think about, okay, New Hampshire is doing the same kinds of things, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, all across the country and up into Canada.
Right.
Everybody's doing it.
But there's obviously something special about Maine, right? Because think about those girls that Dawn talked to at the very beginning of the story. It took one day. Am I surprised? No. I mean, look at our state. It's amazing. But it took one day for them to be like, I love this place. I want to come back. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They come here, they see the beauty, the peace that it brings, and they're like, I got to have more of that.
Yeah, the appeal of the Maine brand should never be underestimated. And the two leaders of the state tourism office say that the largest share of Maine's tourists come from New England, followed by the mid-Atlantic states.
While actual numbers of visitors dropped slightly last year, tourism spending increased. They say the full economic impact of tourism in Maine last year amounted to about $16 billion with a B dollars.